Greetings, I'm Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build this Japanese 4x4 light vehicle Type 95, Kurogane? I have no idea how to say the name. This could be because I don't speak any Japanese. Anyway, this is a 48th scale plastic kit from Tamiya. Let's have a look at what's inside the box. First, this body. If you've seen a Tamiya kit before, you won't be surprised that this is quite neat and well made. There is a bit of sprue on the rear, so you will probably have to remove nubbins from that, otherwise there's pretty much no cleanup needed. There won't be much cleanup needed for the parts on this sprue either. This kind of neatness and minimal mold linedness is pretty typical of Tamiya kits. I don't really know anything about cars, Japanese military or otherwise, but I feel confident that the detail here is going to be reasonably accurate. The parts are well engineered, and there wasn't anything that caused any real problems. You might think there are crew figures on this sprue, but you're hallucinating. There are no crew figures, therefore I didn't build any crew figures. Okay, I might be telling very small mistruths. There are crew figures, and they look pretty good, but I still didn't build them. The clear sprue not only has the window glazings and such, but also the canopy, which is a bit unusual. Not that it's a bad thing, of course. It does make it a little bit tricky to paint it, but I guess it also makes it a bit easier to install the clear parts in the canopy, because they're already there. There's a decal sheet, and there's not a lot to this. A star and some dashboard gauges. Beside it is I guess it's more of a sticker than decal set. Shiny metallic badges and emblems. Very nice. The instructions are pretty typical of a Tamiya kit like this. They're the small, thin, fold-out kind, which I do find a little bit annoying. But they're not too bad, and the important thing is, of course, that the diagrams are clear and easily understood. They'll guide you through the build with minimal confusion. That's always nice, isn't it? I start the build with the frame, onto which I glue the forward suspension doodad. This is obviously pretty simple, but it does kind of give the impression of a more complicated suspension system than it really has. You're probably not going to find a fully detailed suspension system on a Tamiya kit in this scale. Sorry, rivet counters. There's a similar part with something that looks vaguely like leaf springs for the rear. You may have to give it a bit of a nudge, but it's very easy to install. There's also an exhaust pipe part for the rear, which to me looks kind of weird in the way it dips so far down. But what would I know about cars? Nothing, mostly. Axle installation is next, and this is relatively quick, unless you insist on playing with the parts like a child. That can take a fair bit of time. I leave the axle loose because it's kind of hard to determine the center, at least until you put the wheels on. That makes it really easy. The fit is good, though you may have to give it a bit of a nudge to get the wheels on nice and straight. The only wheel difference in the process for the rear wheels is that the wheel parts are slightly different. Don't get them mixed up, or there will be consequences. This, I assume it's just a filler piece for the floor, goes here. Doesn't seem to be a lot to say about this. I follow that with the seat for whoever this car is intended to ferry about. Some officer, I suppose. They get their own special seat with armrests in the back. The driver and other less important passenger get less special seats with no armrests in the front. These are pretty simple to install. Next, onto this thing which looks like it could be an aircraft nose cone, I add the gear stick. There is also what I'm assuming is a handbrake lever, which, because this car is a right-hand drive, seems like it might be on the wrong side. That's where the instructions say to put it, so that's where I put it. Maybe it's a bit easier for the driver to reach on that side. That assembly is then glued into place here, though it might be a better idea to install the gear stick and other bit after putting this part onto the frame. You'd have a slightly lower chance of breaking parts. Next, I give it the shaft. The steering shaft, that is. You can see this goes on the car's right-hand side, sitting nicely in the recess intended for it. The front mudguard part goes on next, and you can see it goes over the shaft, so you can't do this in reverse order without some difficulty. I follow that with the Scheinwerfer, or whatever the Japanese equivalent is. I'm pretty sure somebody told me what that was on stream, but I've forgotten and couldn't be bothered googling. Anyway, the lights go into place easily. There are clear lenses, but I left those off to make it a bit easier on the off chance that I decide to paint this. There's another clear part to add. This, I think it's either a brake light or maybe a light for a number plate, though I don't actually see a number plate. Clearly I've no idea. This is probably going to be totally painted over anyway, so I'm not sure why they made this clear. I'm sure they've got reasons though. The spare wheel goes on next. I tried to be careful to position this in such a way that it won't interfere with the folding top part. If you mount this tilted forward enough, it would certainly get in the way. It could be a good idea to leave this until later, but the instructions wanted it put on now. Next, the front grille. This is pretty simple, though there is enough play here that you could get it slightly out of alignment fairly easily. Use your powers of nudging to avoid that. After that, the body is ready for installation. Like a lot of other things, it did need a bit of nudging to get it into place. I find the various contact points it has with the frame, and apply glue just to let it know I want it to stay there. Cars are usually pretty hard to control without a steering wheel, so I install that like so, nice and easy. I follow that with the dashboard and windshield part. This also fits nice and easy. There are clear windshield parts that should go on here too, but like the headlamp lenses, I've left them off just in case I want to paint this and make life a bit easier for myself. You get the choice of having the roof up or folded down. I've chosen folded down because I'm sure whoever uses this vehicle really loves the wind in their hair. You do have to add the little frame bits to the sides of the main part, which I would say is very moderately fiddly. That assembly is glued onto the body like so. There's a bit of keying in the middle, but there is still quite a bit of play to the fit. I put it on as neatly as I could, and it looks alright. The only problem is the interior isn't all that detailed, and from some angles you can see down through the body, which is not really ideal. Obviously having the top up would eliminate that issue. I'm sure you could also fix it with some putty and maybe some strategically placed luggage or stowage or something like that. Or you could just ignore it. It's certainly not the worst thing. Anyway, that's it. The Japanese 4x4 light vehicle Type 95 Kurogane, or however you say it, in 48th scale from Tamiya is completed. Mostly. It is missing the clear parts of course, but you do still get a pretty good idea of what the model looks like once it's together, and I quite like it. It's an interesting and kind of funny, stumpy looking car. Cars being something I don't often model makes it that kind of slightly different thing that's kind of like a mini vacation, a change being as good as a holiday and all. That's what they say, isn't it? It's a very simple kit, which is certainly not a bad thing. There weren't really any challenges in putting it together, not that you would normally encounter any real challenges with a Tamiya kit. Sometimes that's just what the doctor ordered. If your doctor orders building kits, that's pretty cool. They might not be a good doctor though. What I mean is it's a nice fun build that ends up looking quite good and doesn't take a lot of time. It only took me one stream to get this built, so if you're not faffing about and being distracted with streaming and such, it would probably only take a few minutes to whip this together, which is great if you want a swarm of these for some reason. It's a nice kit, and I give it however many thumbs up a human usually has. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comment section below. If you want to watch me build kits like this one live, I stream modelling a couple of times a week over on Twitch. There's a link in the description. Subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing, share the video with anybody you think might find it helpful, and if you really like what I do, consider supporting on Patreon or Ko-fi. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.